what's going on in here? Federalists. Right here. You got it?
Okay, guys. It's November, the 27th, and I'm certainly gonna write a work paper today and have it published. And the work paper is gonna be on NATO's plea to the pending Eastern Security Alliance, or the Eastern Alliance. Is going to be the counter to NATO after World War III is over with, after it comes to an end, likely in a few years. The ESA will be created, the Eastern Security Alliance, and it's going to be it's going to include India, China, South Africa, and Australia and Japan and South Korea and a reformed North Korea, and for the most part, all NATO not counters, but all non-NATO members for the most part, after ECOWAS and CARICOM gets into NATO, and after possibly, or before even Brazil gets into NATO. All right, so most of the Americas will end up, for the most part, the Americas will end up in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. All of West Africa will end up in NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the same organization, obviously. And all of Europe, for the most part, including Eastern Europe and Russia, will be able to get into NATO. But the rest of the world, for the most part, will invest in creating and join and getting into the Eastern Security Alliance, or simply the Eastern Alliance locally. And so it should be created, I would say, maybe a decade from now, or incepted maybe half a decade from now, or conceptualized, officially via international discourse, maybe half a decade from now. All right, but the United Nations Security Council will contract with both, organizations to be able to monitor them and to be able to manage, and to be able, once again, the UN Security Council will be able to contract with both NATO and the future ESA, dependent ESA, to be able to manage them and to mitigate problems in advance, and at any point of conflict, and to also to be able to form reconciliatory agreements or memorandums toward agreements and so forth, toward formal and nominal agreements and things of that nature. But eventually the United Nations Security Council will be able to create some sort of maybe half a century into the future, the UN Security Council, and it's certainly going to be reformed by then, will be able to support a United Nations Peace Corps. And the Peace Corps will have nothing to do with, it will have nothing to do with being exclusive as charitable. It will certainly have to do with being charitable as security directive, and making sure that the world is conditioned for pacifism. So the African Union is going to have a Peace Corps. It's security. The AU security or peacekeeping forces will evolve into being the AU Peace Corps, and then that sort of understanding of Peace Corps will be adopted by the United Nations Security Council, the United Nations in general. The encompassing United Nations in general. So the work paper I'm going to write up today, I'm going to author today and publish, likely later today or early tomorrow. will certainly be a plea to the future ESA members toward achieving pacifism, comprehensive, procedural, and cultural pacifism. No matter how many conflicts, regional and local conflicts that we do find after this World War III is over with, after we do sign, the whole world, does sign not just proliferation, treaty, not just that, but literally the abolition of nuclear and atomic conflict. So there's going to be a universal treaty on the abolition of nuclear and atomic conflict, essentially. So yeah, what I stated earlier essentially is the same thing, but now I'm just going to say a bit, global treaty, so that you guys understand that it's going to be comprehensive and it's going to be signed within the General Assembly, and it's going to be supplemented by so many different agreements and directives all over the world, and to support the constraint that it's going to provide. So yes, at the end of the war, this war underway, the global war, essentially World War III, we are going to have the whole world, for the most part, sign a global treaty for the abolition of nuclear conflict or nuclear warfare, nuclear and atomic warfare, or simply the abolition of atomic warfare, since nuclear weaponry will still be used, those of lesser impact, those which can literally help halt, great conflicts or get in the way or impede, some sort of proliferation of arsenals and things of that nature, or war-minded directives and movements and so forth. So yeah, so when I said nuclear and atomic conflict, toward, essentially the abolition of nuclear and atomic, conflict, I'm not speaking of, abolishing all security, sensible and reasonable security, policies. Okay? I don't want you guys thinking that I've reformed or refined my policies and so forth into some sort of regressive, understanding or communication effort. No, so the abolition of atomic warfare, or the abolition of nuclear, warfare and conflict of an atomic nature, thing, or essentially, yeah. So what I wrote earlier makes perfect sense. I did infer atomic, weaponry when I did say nuclear, and I'm pretty sure that each time I did use the term nuclear when speaking of the abolition of nuclear, conflict on a worldwide basis, or nuclear conflict in general, I've always detailed that I'm speaking of weapons of mass destruction and so forth. I've always explained that, and eventually we get to a point of no longer, far into the future, we get to a point of no longer, perceiving, security apparatuses as being as destructive as we do have with some of the nuclear weaponry, which are not, based on atomic, sequences and sequential destructive forces and so forth. But anyway, all right, guys. So I'm gonna sit at a cafe today, or at a fast food restaurant certainly, and I'm gonna write up this work paper. And once again, it's gonna be a work paper on NATO's plea to the pending Eastern Security Alliance, toward comprehensive and nominal pacifism as a directive of the United Nations as world government, and specifically each and every one of the member states of the United Nations, within their own culture of constitutional and duly enacted statutes, constitutional law and duly enacted statutes. So that's what we're working on.